going on? All right. Now, in today's video, we're gonna cover a few different topics, right? Wanted to talk a little bit about the recent flooding that happened in Texas. Whether or not we think it was completely natural or this was the result of cloud seeding or, HARP manipulation and weather control. Y'all already know. We've talked about harp, man, a lot, a lot on this channel. I think I did some videos where like we really went on a deep dive on harp, and it was like, you know, it just really went into how they actually manipulate the weather. They're like really old videos on the channel because harp was like, y'all know if you've been on YouTube watching this kind of stuff for years, harp was the center of these type of videos decade ago, long time ago. People used to really look up stuff about weather modification, right? And I found like a clip or two on TikTok where they were talking about some cloud seeding stuff that happened, I think, 2 days before the actual flood, right? Now, check this video out real quick from this lady's porch. This was insane. I saw this a couple days ago. Man, this blew my mind.
Saturday, y'all. Oh my God. It is flooded out here in Central Texas. We just got a notice that we need to evacuate my apartment. Now, those of y'all that follow me, y'all know that I come out here on my patio often and I show you where the deer and stuff are down there. He making rounds. He making rounds. He making rounds. But this is a river. We live in between two rivers, and this river is flooded. That is high. Like normally, I want to say that this is probably a good 12 feet above ground or more. Thankfully, we up here on the second floor, but the rain is continuing to come. It's supposed to rain all day, and it's getting pretty crazy. We are getting flooded out. I'm talking about seriously. It is bad. Look at that. The flooding is flooding, and it ain't nothing to play with.
Now that is crazy, y'all. Did y'all see that? We're talking about a river that flooded, went from I don't know what they said how high the river actually sits before it started flooded, but they said it rised over 20 feet in just under 2 hours. Something that does not seem natural at all. And the before, when like the little deer were running in, the little open field area, to basically the next day it being over 20 feet of water is insane. And it just doesn't seem like that is natural. But then you'd have to ask yourself why, would they choose to flood that particular area, or maybe these are just tests to see, how good cloud seeding actually works. I remember when it first happened, somebody commented on my page, like, are they flooding Texas because they're building the Stargate portal with the whole AI thing in Abilene, Texas? But it just goes to show you that people don't really buy that it was a natural event, right? So check out this little 30-second clip real quick that talked about cloud seeding operations 2 days before the Texas
Modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iode into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding.
Now, he said it can't come close to causing a flood, which obviously is the appropriate answer for someone who is, behind a company that, uses cloud seeding. And people don't buy it. You know, someone says, of course, he's not going to say they are connected. Stop playing God. Why are people trying to play God and Mother Nature? Someone said, isn't that how Dubai got flooded last year? Response says, but wait, cloud seeding doesn't exist. Basically amplifying what's already there. It's raining, you know, they do these cloud seeding operations and it completely, turns a regular rainstorm into a flood. Insane. Somebody said the company should be held accountable. Bill Gates is big on seeding clouds. Everyone remembers what happened in Dubai last year. Now, this was an article right here that talked about cloud seeding and did it cause the Dubai flooding last year in 2024. Dubai is situated on the coast of the UAE and is usually very dry. But while it receives less than 3.9 inches a year rainfall on average, it does experience occasional extreme downpours. And so basically it goes in to detail and it says cloud seeding involves manipulating existing clouds to help produce more rain. This can be done by using aircraft to drop small particles like silver iodide into clouds. Water vapor can then condense more easily and turn into rain. The technique has been around for decades, and the UAE used it in recent years to help address water shortages. In the hours that followed the floods, some social media users were quick to wrongly attribute the extreme weather solely to recent cloud seeding operations in the country. I mean, if you think about it, it almost sounds like AI. You create something and it eventually gets out of control. So it sounds like when they basically use cloud seeding for, water shortage, I mean, it created a flood that they weren't quite expecting.
It's Augustus Rico. I'm the CEO and founder of Rainmaker. We're a cloud seeding company that is enhancing precipitation via advanced radar and also drones for the sake of supplementing water supplies for farms, cities, reservoirs, and wildlife throughout the United States. Cloud seeding is altogether different. The only similarity is that it has to do with the atmosphere. It has to do with the low atmosphere. It's a mechanism, or it's a tool that either freezes the water in existing clouds or condenses the droplets in existing clouds into bigger snowflakes or bigger droplets such that they fall onto your target watershed or farm. It's a technology that has existed for 80 years in the United States. It was patented by GE in 1946. The National Center for Atmospheric Research produced some great results from what's called the SNOWY campaign, where they were able to verify cloud seeding's effect, and they saw tens of millions of gallons of precipitation occur from each of their interventions, and that was very, very easily distinguishable on radar. It also is worth saying that it's local in its scope, and it is very short temporally. So if ever there is cloud seeding going on and you don't like the consequences of it, there are unintended consequences, and it's quite well characterized, so the unintended consequences are minimal. You can stop whenever you want. We, Rainmaker Technology Corporation, has engineers in all of those states that I mentioned that are actively modifying weather, that are actively enhancing precipitation for farmers and reservoirs and cities that are undergoing drought.
Yo, he just said they have engineers in every state that they operate who are actively modifying the weather. He just said sometimes there are unintended consequences. That's exactly what I just said about the Dubai flooding. Sounds like it was unintended and it flooded. It was a massive flood, just like what we have here in Texas. I mean, yeah, Texas is a very dry state. Arizona, Cali in certain areas, there's certain states that are very dry and don't get as much rain as others. But there has to be a bigger agenda at hand. If you think about it, he said the technology has existed in the US for over 80 years. Over 80 years. And so it really confirms that a lot of these so-called natural disasters, natural floods are being orchestrated, are the product of weather modification. I mean, if you have to listen to that clip again, the guy just literally said unintended consequences. He literally told you that, we will basically flood an area by mistake. And all people say is that, they need to stop trying to play God. Someone said, at what point is this basically a crime against humanity? Somebody said, leave our weather alone. This should open a lot of eyes on these companies. This is actually insane. I'm glad I found this clip because he openly admitted it. And he's the CEO of a company called Rainmaker. They're making rain. Yo, that's insane. If I'm not mistaken, this guy was also on the Sean Ryan podcast that we've reacted to multiple times on this channel. Pretty sure I just saw him recently. Yeah, yeah, he was on there. He was definitely on there. Augustus Dorico, CEO of Rainmaker. Yeah, I knew it. I knew I saw him on here. I'm not gonna play it. Let me see real quick.
We won that competition.
Yeah, I was actually watching some of this stuff, and he was talking about all kinds of stuff. Cloud seeding and geoengineering. Um, 1 second. I'm gonna play just a little piece of this. I just want to see where it goes. This is literally like live reaction with me because I haven't listened to this part. But 1 second. If it's not going anywhere, I'm gonna pause it and we're gonna move on to the next topic. All right.
Let's open with cloud seeding, right? Cloud seeding was a technology invented in the United States by American scientists in 1946. It is super localized in its effect, both in space and time, meaning you can make it rain or snow more over an individual city, over 100 square miles at a time. Precipitation happens, 15 minutes to a couple hours after your intervention. And if you stop operating, right, if you stop cloud seeding, then you stop affecting the weather. It stops changing, right? So you can turn it off whenever you want. Also, because we were doing all of these experiments over the course of the last 80 years, we have data on its safety, right? We have data on the materials that we use. So people have typically used material called silver iodide to freeze the liquid in the cloud into these big snowflakes that eventually precipitate, melt into rain, or stay as snow. Silver iodide, its toxicity is like 10 times less than aspirin, for one. But more than that, more importantly than that, after decades of operations in Utah and Idaho and Colorado and California, because there were all these old programs, like I mentioned, they only added 8 parts per trillion more soil or more silver to the soil. And there's already 2 parts per million silver in American soil as it stands. So they added 1 million times less than what's naturally there. There's no adverse ecological consequences, agricultural consequences, consequences to human health. Like, it's way below the threshold where you'd start to see anything like that. So cloud seeding is just a way to make more water. It's super local in its effect. It's pretty well characterized, and we know that it doesn't have any adverse ecological consequences. On the other hand, there is geoengineering, particularly solar radiation modification. That is a pretty new technology. The way that it is proposed to work is dispersing particles in the upper atmosphere to reflect sunlight and cool the planet down. Totally unlike cloud seeding. In order for cloud seeding to work, you need a big fluffy cloud that's already there. Solar radiation modification, you just put it up at like 60,000 feet. It's an interesting technology, but it's one that is like almost entirely untested, and we should be way more scrutinous of and skeptical of before we deploy it at scale. Because, like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen yet if we cool the planet down by a degree Celsius. We don't even know if we want to do that, right? So that's the main geoengineering technology that exists. And then there's chemtrails or contrails, right? So that's the streaky things in the sky that people see behind airplanes. The first and most important thing to say is if you see those long streaks in the sky, that's not cloud seeding. Whether it's contrails or chemtrails or anything else, it is not cloud seeding. For cloud seeding to work, you have to have a big fluffy cloud with natural water. Those long streaky things, they can't make rain. They don't turn into big puffier clouds that eventually make rain. That doesn't have to do with weather modification. There are such a thing as contrails, right? So the turbulence from planes and the vapor from the jet engines will freeze behind the plane, and that'll turn into condensation. What people have suggested to be chemtrails are like the nefarious addition of either some sort of neurotoxin or goodness knows what to those contrails to poison people. I have not yet seen enough compelling evidence to believe that's happening.
Now, we know, um, we have talked about chemtrails a lot. Anytime someone talks about chemtrails and he was like, nefarious neurotoxins to poison people, right? Makes me think about Prince. Prince was like one of the first to go on record on the Tavis Smiley like talk show, and he talked about his knowledge of chemtrails. And if I'm not mistaken, he learned that knowledge from Dick Gregory, right? And he talked about it like, they were using chemtrails, making X's in the sky, and these neurotoxins were being used to, amplify aggression, amplify violence in people, so to speak, right? Let's see if this is a short clip of it here.
Phenomena of chemtrails. And, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time and say, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And the next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing and you didn't know why. Okay? And you really didn't know why.
See, that's basically, you know, used to amplify violence, amongst a lot of other reasons why people believe um, chemtrails are nefarious, as this guy Augustus put it. So once again, this is the CEO of Rainmaker, and I'm actually glad I did click on this. That was actually pretty interesting to listen to, and he just told us how they create rain. Literally, Rainmaker. They are making rain. They are making it rain more. Said all they need is an active cloud, and that it's separate from geoengineering, which I believe that is a very interesting topic as well. He just told us like it is. And you also have to remember that it came out of his mouth as well that this Texas flooding may have been a giant mistake. They just told you 2 days before they ran a cloud seeding operation in Texas. That source that we watched it from, which is here, not sure what news channel this is, or I guess it's some kind of NBC, local Texas channel. Maybe I don't know completely, but they say cloud seeding operations took place 2 days before the Texas flooding. Right? Pretty interesting, y'all. That is pretty interesting. Now, I wanted to use the first part of this video you know, a lot of these type of videos, I'm like more doing live with y'all, like I didn't really plan any of this. I think the only part I had like ready was this clip, if I'm not mistaken. But this allows me to kind of just go off the top of my head with y'all, and we just get into what's been going on lately, which is why I wanted to cover this first, because obviously this was the biggest story um that has been going on, right? I want to get into this, right? And y'all remember we were talking about DARPA and the recent video, and I said I wanted to do a video on it, but this is not going to be like a complete video, but I want y'all to listen to this, right? And it's about blue light technology. Basically, the light that emits from our screens, right? Your cell phone, that giant bright light sometimes that, comes from your computer, your phone, your tablet, so on and so on, right? Like at nighttime when you got all the lights off, you got the TV off. Your cell phone could be like at medium brightness if you don't have it on dark mode or night mode. That kind of kills that blue light, and it's super bright. Let's get into it a little bit, right? So this is DARPA and MK Ultra technology on blue lights that emit from our screens. Thought this was really interesting. We'll watch a couple of minutes of it, and yeah, we'll keep it moving. All right.
This program called MK Ultra.
Once or twice.
Okay. So MK Ultra is the merging of two things. The first thing gets merged is this idea from Dallas that they're going to study it. Then there's another guy who's a 1937 surgeon, SS guy named Kurt Plotkin. Plotkin worked with the Nazis. His idea was mind control through the use of Mexican peyote. So he starts doing his stuff, and the CIA is looking at the effect of light and wireless technology and things like that these guys are using, and they begin to study it. They hire a guy named Sidney Gottlieb. Gottlieb runs the program from 53 through which we think 64 before, of course, all these things are destroyed. But there's a lot of interesting things that the government finds out that is transferred to DARPA. When does DARPA first form? 1958. So all this information from the CIA and FBI are transferred into DARPA.
Right.
DARPA then takes it the next level. They go and they hire a guy in New Orleans. I told you we'd eventually come back to New Orleans. A guy named Alton Oshner. He's first an FBI asset as a surgeon, but then he becomes a CIA asset because of this issue here. They go and hire a PhD researcher named Delgado, and he's working in the Tulane neurosurgery department and neurology. They get him out of that really quick, and they send him to Mexico, and they start putting wires into the bull's head to find out, can they stop and control the bull using electric signals? Why? Because they already have started to learn about Becker's work. So now this is the idea. Now they're trying to execute. They're trying to use this as a weapon.
Yeah.
Got it?
Right.
So what happens in this whole time, the crazy stories that you've heard Bobby and I talk about on the Tetragrammaton podcast, where Gottlieb basically takes the Air Force plane over St. Louis and drops LSD on the whole city in the mid 1950s to see the effect. They found out mescaline didn't work, so the next step after that was to use LSD. That's one of the famous things that we did find out from the Church Commission that they physically did. So this is what I would tell you is Operation Northwoods, probably negative 2.0, which is when the government thought it was a good idea that they could just do whatever the fuck they wanted to the United States populace, they wouldn't know it, so they didn't need any informed consent. Okay? A lot of people talk about Tuskegee and the airmen and the syphilis. Dude, there's a pattern with the industrial military complex. When they want to do something, they don't even ask for forgiveness. They don't ask for permission either. They just do it. So when they do this and Gottlieb fails, what sight lines are really good for DARPA is this work that Delgado's doing is amazing. So they said, okay, you could do it with wired technology, and they were able to turn the bull off as soon as he was going to spear the matador. They said, let's try to do this wireless. Why? They had all the patents and everything they stole from Tesla. They also had all Marconi's work. At this same time, remember, Motorola is now one of the guys that's the industrial military company. They know that wireless telephony is actually coming. So they decide to employ it here first. So Delgado finds out that actually it does work. You can do it without wires. You don't have to do brain surgery on the animal to do it. And then they ask the next question.
They didn't have to install anything in the brain?
No, they did not. But this was the key step. This is the step where I think your audience, people find it incredulous when I tell them. The next step was, could you do this using light and light alone? And it turns out they found out you could. If you use blue light specifically, it actually destroys the dopamine reward tracks in your brain. Just so you know, Meta and Google today own those patents. Remember who's the Google patent attorney? Nicole Shanahan. So I said, Nicole, do you remember all the work you had to do? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I could never figure out what all this was about. Well, you need to know a little bit about Google's history. Google was formed in 1995 when DARPA gave the search algorithm to these two cats from Stanford. You know about Stanford now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talked to me about Huberman, why they don't want to talk to me. You started to put two and two together yet.
Yeah.
So the issue is these guys created the internet. They connected all these colleges all over where the academicians were to share this information. So this information is going all around in this area. They basically then figure out and perfect the delivery of blue light technology through screens. Who is the big tech company in the 1950s and 60s that were doing this? Turns out that's IBM. And IBM is working on liquid crystalline displays. And I remember, this is in the 50s and 60s. You as a young man never saw those TVs until the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then it got a boost from who? Obama, who made the analog to digital transition so that you'd have to use what? LCD screens. And then what else did he do? We're going to ban incandescent bulbs. Why? Because incandescent bulbs not only have fake blue light, but they also have purple and red, which is what you need as the antidote to blue.
They were banned?
Yeah, well, the first ban was from Obama saying, we're going to get rid of these under the guise that they're not energy efficient because they burn too much. You probably remember when you were a little kid, you touched the incandescent bulb, it's hot as shit.
Yeah.
Well, the proxy that they're using to you is, they burn too much energy because they have UV light and red light in it, and that makes heat. So therefore, we should get rid of that, do blue. But you have no idea that DARPA and the government already want blue light everywhere so they can control you with it. That's the real answer behind this whole program. So what happens then?
Well, how do they control us by putting blue light in front, by making our worlds are surrounded by these screens and these these phone screens. How do they control us with this light?
I just told you, they control...
By killing us?
No, they control your dopamine reward tracks. In other words, they're dumbing you down. They're making you much more likely to be preconditioned, which brings us to the other person.
We are dopamine slaves.
That kind of answered a question that a lot of people think about when you use the term screen time. When you use why people are addicted to their screens, saying that blue light technology is used to dumb you down, um, to keep you living off of dopamine, and probably also helps the term IG, seeking instant gratification, dopamine slaves. It really goes into why everything is being done the way that it is. I mean, we talk about our phone screens, we mostly talk about the Black Mirror, the portal that exists that makes up our phone, through the black screen mirror, through the tiny chips that are used to power the phone. Remember, we just talked about that being fallen angel technology. Also, to our brains basically being manipulated by the blue light that is emitted from the phone to, you know, dumb us down to easily be controlled even more. I mean, you have to think about it. You have this light in your face all day, and sometimes it gives you a headache. It makes you feel foggy, because you're staring at your screen all day, but you're stuck. You're stuck. You're like in a constant state of picking up your phone, setting down your phone, picking up your phone. And then now your phone is it's like I said earlier in the video. You got all your lights off at night. Your phone is right in your face. That light is just, you know, going directly into your eyes, directly into your brain, sending all kind of signals. Pretty sure it's a little bit deeper even as far as what the blue light actually does to your brain, the damage it can be doing. Also, just having that screen in front of your eyes all day long. Obviously it's better when you're out in the daytime because that light is not so, you know, bright and directly sending those signals into your brain. But it's terrible for you at nighttime, especially when you're in your room. And so many people like to scroll and watch videos, you know, at night. It's terrible. But I thought that was very interesting. Why? Because it comes from DARPA. Um, you know, the technology comes from DARPA. And I thought it was very interesting as well on how he said DARPA actually gave the search engine, that we know as Google today, to the, people who we see or they say actually created it. Like, Facebook with Zuckerberg. All of that stuff came from DARPA, and they just put a face on it. So DARPA remains in the background as the original creators. Crazy stuff. So I think we'll end the video here with this last clip from TikTok. Someone actually sent me this, but I appreciate if you're watching this video, I appreciate you sending me this. I thought this was pretty interesting, so we'll go ahead and end the video off with this last clip. And it was about the Diddy case and ritual abuse, and Diddy being a high priest in the occult. All right, I thought it was pretty interesting. So let's check this out.
Accident, ceremonial humiliation, Cassie kicked, beaten like a dog. This is beyond cult. This is wicked. Because at its core, this isn't just about money. It's about inversion. Invert the sacred, celebrate the profane, turn beauty into perversions, and virtue into weakness. Is this starting to make sense to you? You see, in Bernays' world, the goal is to bypass reason. But in their world, the one that Diddy operated in, the goal is to bypass conscience. You see, this is why people talk about Satanism in Hollywood. And not because of, goat sacrifices or whatever the hell it is, but because the ideology of Satan, pure ego and domination and inversion of truth, this is the dominant operating system. Whether they know it or not, many of these players, many of these people serve it. Not metaphorically, not in jest, but materially. Through the degradation of others, especially women. Through ritual abuse. Through orchestrated trauma. Now let's not be naive, my friends. The ancient world knew all about this. Caligula knew. Nero knew. Every decaying empire turns to orgiastic horror before it dies. Rome had its bread and circuses, Juvenal, its pedophilic elites, its sacrifices to false gods, and now, so do we. Except ours come in 4K with a soundtrack and a vodka line. You see, this is the world Diddy helped build, or at least enforced. That's why this case matters, because it tears the veil. And when you look at him now, not as a rapper or as a mogul, but as a high priest in the Church of Caligula, think what I'm saying, You see what Edward Bernays warned about. A population groomed to love its chains, to laugh at suffering, to cheer for monsters, to call demonic abuse just business or celebrity culture. Let me ask you this. What happens when the masses can no longer tell the difference between entertainment and enslavement, between glamour and grooming? See, what happens is they become livestock, cattle, and owned and controlled. This is not hysteria. It's pattern recognition. From Epstein's Island to Weinstein's casting couch to Nickelodeon's silent corridors. Remember that? The signs are everywhere. The symbols are open. The handlers are smug. And the public? Numb, distracted, programmed. Edward Bernays knew it could happen. He warned that the conscious manipulation of the masses was not just possible, but inevitable, unless people woke up. So let's wake up. You wake up. Tell them to wake up. Diddy isn't a fluke. He's a portal. He's a prism. Look through him, not at him. Look at the industry that crowned him, at the victims it buried, at the networks it protects. Follow the NDAs. Follow the settlements. Follow the careers that disappeared when people asked the wrong questions to the wrong people. Why do you think this has gone on for so long? Why do they keep paying all this money? It must mean a lot to them. It must really mean something.
My God, I like the way he said that. Said Diddy is a portal. Look through him. Look at what supports him, what promotes him. Look at the industry, basically. You know, look at cases that were shoved to the side to, make this Diddy thing be front news. One of these comments said that's exactly why it wasn't televised. Of course, like I said, you got to even believe that it was real first. Why wasn't it televised? Why couldn't we actually see something? It just, man, look at this other comment. It's making me stumble on my words, which I don't often do. That's how you know it's BS. Somebody said Diddy case was to distract the masses from the Abercrombie and Fitch case that everybody forgot about, which is a bigger case. Now, if you think about that, man, yeah, a lot of people actually forgot about that. You remember that Abercrombie and Fitch one with, the owner of it or owners. Remember they were like abusing all of the guys. They had all the weird stuff with the guys wearing no shirts and no drawers with pants on, standing outside of some of the locations. I mean, actually wicked, man. Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. We must remember that, y'all. Really good clip, y'all. Really good clip. I've actually never seen him before. So I'm gonna try to find where this originally comes from, whether he has a YouTube or not, or TikTok channel, not really sure. That was very interesting, and he might have some more stuff we can actually talk about. So yeah, y'all, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this video up, wrap up this episode. Um, Hope y'all enjoyed that one. Let me know, man. Let me know what y'all favorite topic was from this video. We got into the Texas flood, cloud seeding, a little bit of DARPA, a little bit of Diddy. Yeah, man, just covering what's been going on lately. Y'all already know we're coming back with more videos really soon. So yeah, with that being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm gonna see y'all soon. All right, I'm out.